When I Am Legend first hit theaters back in 2007, it quickly became one of those movies that stuck with people. It had Will Smith in one of his most intense roles as Dr. Robert Neville, a virologist who found himself all alone in New York City after a virus devastated humanity. Most of the population was wiped out, and those who survived weren't really people anymore. They'd been turned into nocturnal, aggressive mutants called Dark Seekers. The film was part action, part survival thriller, and part emotional character study because so much of it was just Neville and his dog, clinging to the hope of finding a cure and maybe some other survivors. The movie did well at the box office, but for years after its release, the conversation among fans centered on its ending. That's because I Am Legend actually had two different endings, the one shown in theaters and the alternate version that was closer to the spirit of Richard Matheson's original novel. The theatrical cut gave us a pretty straightforward and tragic finale. Neville sacrificed himself to save a potential cure, cementing his role as a hero. But the alternate ending flipped things around in a way that was more complex, and for a lot of people, more meaningful. In that version, Neville realized the Dark Seekers weren't just mindless monsters, they were intelligent beings with emotions, families, and a society of their own. He saw himself as the real Legend, the terrifying figure who had been tormenting them. That ending had him survive, but with the weight of that realization pressing down on him. Fast forward to 2022, when fans finally got some huge news. I Am Legend 2 was officially happening, and not only was Will Smith returning, but Michael B. Jordan was also joining the cast. Instantly, people started speculating about who Jordan would be playing. Was he going to be Neville's son? A younger version of Neville in some flashback or prequel setup? Or maybe even a leader of the Dark Seekers themselves? It was all guesses at that point. Now, thanks to a recent podcast appearance, Smith himself has shed a little more light on what's coming. During a conversation on Drink Champs, Smith explained that the original idea for the follow-up had actually been a prequel. That would have shown events before the outbreak or during the early stages of Neville's story. But screenwriter Akiva Goldsman suggested a much stronger path forward. Instead of rewinding time, why not build a sequel from the alternate ending? That way, Neville is still alive, and the story can explore a world shaped by that version of events. Smith then dropped the big detail fans had been waiting for. Michael B. Jordan's character isn't Neville's son or some distant version of him. Instead, he's the head of a settlement in Connecticut. That alone changes the dynamics of the sequel in a huge way, because Neville's story in the first film was about isolation, about being the last man standing in a dead city. Jordan's character, on the other hand, represents community and leadership in a post-apocalyptic world. He's someone who has built or maintained a society which sets him up as a sharp contrast to Neville. That bit of information already clears up a bunch of the speculation and gives us an idea of where the two characters might clash or come together. Because if Neville's experiences led him to see the Dark Seekers as more than just monsters, there's a chance Jordan's leader character doesn't share that view. That could spark real conflict between them, especially if the settlement he leads is built on a more aggressive stance toward the infected. It's easy to picture a power struggle or at least a philosophical divide between the lone survivor turned skeptic and a leader who has responsibilities to protect his community. It's also worth remembering why the sequel is leaning on the alternate ending in the first place. The theatrical cut might have been more action-packed and Hollywood, but it stripped away some of the deeper themes of the source material. In that version, Neville dies a heroic martyr, leaving Anna and Ethan to carry the cure to other survivors. It ties things up in a clean bow, but it doesn't really match the moral questions raised by Matheson's book. The alternate ending, though, keeps Neville alive, but forces him to confront the horrifying truth. In the eyes of the Dark Seekers, he was the monster. By experimenting on them and killing them, he became their legend. That twist gave the story an extra layer of tragedy and meaning, which is why it makes sense as the foundation for a sequel. By starting there, I Am Legend 2 sets itself up for a much more nuanced and potentially exciting narrative. Instead of moving into a cured world where humanity is bouncing back, we're going deeper into a fractured, uncertain reality where the virus is still out there, the Dark Seekers are still a presence, and the survivors are still figuring out how to live. That opens the door to all kinds of possibilities: different settlements, rival factions, shifting perspectives on the infected, and of course, the tension between survival and morality. Michael B. Jordan's casting as a settlement leader also hints at a story that's bigger in scope. Neville's story was almost claustrophobic, with most of it limited to a deserted Manhattan and the solitude of his own thoughts. A settlement in Connecticut suggests we'll see more of how groups of people adapt to this world, how they rebuild in small pockets, and how they interact, or clash, with each other. It's the kind of expansion that can take a familiar story and push it into new territory. At the same time, having Neville still alive means the sequel doesn't just discard what Will Smith brought to the role. His character's guilt and realization about the Darkseekers could become a central theme. Imagine Neville trying to convince a community leader like Jordan's character that the infected deserve recognition of their humanity, only to be met with resistance. That's fertile ground for drama, and it adds weight to the action rather than just making it about shootouts and survival. This decision to canonize the alternate ending is also pretty fascinating from a filmmaking standpoint. It's not often that a sequel completely disregards the theatrical cut of its predecessor, especially one that most audiences are more familiar with. Usually, alternate endings are just DVD extras for fun what-ifs, but here, the alternate ending is being treated as the real conclusion, which is a bold, creative move. It also reflects how audiences have changed over the years. People are more open to complex, morally challenging storytelling, and I Am Legend 2 seems poised to deliver that. There's another reason this path feels so much more promising. In the theatrical cut, the story wrapped up with a sense of closure. Neville dies, the cure is saved, and humanity gets a shot at a future. That doesn't leave much room for a sequel. But with the alternate ending, the world is left messy, dangerous, and unresolved. That means there are a bunch of new stories waiting to be told, especially with two powerhouse actors like Smith and Jordan leading the way. When you think about it, this move also mirrors the themes of the book more closely. In Matheson's story, Neville wasn't a savior. He was the boogeyman of a new world order where the infected had become the dominant species. The title, I Am Legend, referred to how he became the stuff of nightmares to them. By following the alternate ending, the sequel doesn't just preserve Neville's life, it preserves the chance to explore those deeper questions about humanity, fear, and adaptation. So what can we really expect from I Am Legend 2? While details are still limited, the combination of Neville's survivor guilt, Jordan's leadership role, and the dangerous, morally gray world left behind promises a story that's more character-driven and layered than just another post-apocalyptic shoot-'em-up. There's room for action, of course, but also for big ideas about survival, community, and what it means to be human when the line between us and them is blurred. It also helps that both Smith and Jordan bring serious acting chops. Smith has already proven he can carry a film that's part blockbuster, part emotional gut punch. Jordan has a track record of playing characters who are both powerful and nuanced, whether it's in Creed or Black Panther. Putting them together in this kind of story sets the stage for some electrifying dynamics. I Am Legend 2 smartly makes Jordan the leader, moving the story forward while avoiding repetition. Rooted in the alternate ending, it promises a stronger foundation. With fresh perspectives and respect for the original novel, the sequel looks to reimagine the tale for modern audiences while keeping the legacy alive. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay in the loop. And if you want, you can share your thoughts about this video in the comments.